Okay, the NRL and RLPA reach agreement in principle on the CBA. So the negotiations were quick since they resumed. They were positive, and it looks like a deal has been done. Now, there's a few minor details to iron out. We will obviously find out in the fullness of time the compromises that both the league and the Players Association have made, because the Players Association wanted 100 points of discussion. And the NRL initially said, look, take it or leave it deal. We've taken 20 months to get to this point. Now, coming out of this, will Clint Newton still be RLPA head? And Andrew Abdo has his authority been weakened because Peter V'landys has swooped in to get the negotiations over the line. Is this like another Todd Greenberg where his authority has been undermined? Because the same thing happened with Todd Greenberg during COVID, that V'landys stepped in with Andrew Abdo and basically undermined Greenberg's weak authority at the time. Now, obviously, a lot has happened since the initial COVID lockdown. A lot has happened since the last CBA was basically allowed to roll over for another year to allow these negotiations to continue last year. Back in February, there was obviously another media boycott, threat of strike action, threat to delay the start of the season. Obviously, that didn't come to pass, but media commitments were reduced by the RLPA. Then they resumed again on round one, and then it was about a month ago, 5 weeks ago, that the RLPA decided to do their media boycott and to basically say, well, we're not happy with the deal that's on the table. That has taken, at that point, 20 months of negotiation with two independent mediators gone through as well. Now, what does this mean? Well, it means obviously the RLPA has had to give some ground on some of their points that they've raised and changes they want to make to the CBA. It obviously means that the NRL has been forced to give ground on the deal they put on the table that was rejected 5 weeks ago by the RLPA. What does this mean for Clint Newton and Andrew Abdo and Peter V'landys? Well, back in 2020 during the lockdown, Todd Greenberg obviously had his authority just swept from beneath him when Peter V'landys and Andrew Abdo were the ones negotiating with state and federal governments to get play resumed 3 years ago in 2020 following the lockdown. And obviously Todd Greenberg lost his job and was replaced by Andrew Abdo on an interim and now permanent basis. Obviously the negotiations were stalling because of Clint Newton and Andrew Abdo not seeing eye to eye and constantly butting heads in negotiations. So does that mean Andrew Abdo's position in charge of the NRL is now under threat? Also Clint Newton, how long does he remain in charge of the RLPA going forward? Because the RLPA is there to represent the players. And it's not just during CBA negotiations. There could be a lot of incidents that happen in the regular season or post-season or off-season where an RLPA member or members may seek the assistance of their Players Association. It's that step below a union. So if they were to strike, they wouldn't get strike payments that you would get if they were a fully fledged union, where you can get payments to cover basic necessities. So there is that. Were all the players united behind the RLPA? Because one of the issues they had was back pay. Now, not all RLPA members that are currently members were RLPA members in 2020 or 2021. Some players have retired, some players have left the NRL and gone to Super League. So players that retired, for example, are Boyd Cordner, Jake Friend, Darius Boyd. They're ones that spring to mind that retired in the last couple of years. They are also technically owed back pay from 2020/2021. Players who've gone overseas. Brodie Croft is another one. He was an NRL player, for example, during 2020 for the Brisbane Broncos. He now plays in the Super League. So there's that argument over, how much back pay do these ex NRL players or retired NRL players get? There are those NRL players that have debuted since the COVID disrupted seasons of 2020 and 21, so last season, for example, and this year, who aren't necessarily eligible for that back pay. So that's an issue where some players may not see that back pay as an issue because it doesn't concern them, so there's not necessarily uniformity there. Players' data collection, personal data collection, was a big issue, and how is that data used? Does it go to betting companies? Does it go to data harvesting? Various things like that, very similar to tracking cookies on a website. That was another big issue. And then, of course, education and training programs for post-retirement. So again, those players who may have recently retired I'm going to use again Jake Friend, Boy Cordner, Darius Boyd as the examples, because they're the ones that are just in my head right now. What's their post-career look like if they decide to leave the game and go into the mainstream workforce? On the NRL side of things, they're going to have given a bit of ground to compromise to get these negotiations over the line. So Peter V'landys has come in as the tough negotiator. He likes getting deals done. He said he would take 48 hours. On Monday, said I can get the deal done in 48 hours. It's taken less than 48 hours from negotiations resuming to this deal getting done. They only resumed yesterday. So less than 48 hours from negotiations resuming, they have concluded positively. There are still issues to be ironed out, but a lot of questions have to be asked about why it's taken the best part of 2 years, nearly 2 years, for these negotiations to drag on. 2 independent mediators later, 2 media boycotts later, 2 threats of strike later. And what does this mean for Andrew Abdo and Clint Newton in their respective organisations? Will Clint Newton be replaced in the RLPA, for example? Will Andrew Abdo be replaced in the NRL? Will some of his role in regards to contract negotiations between the NRL and the RLPA change? Will they get a different member of the NRL hierarchy to do that kind of negotiation going forward? The fact they had to get Blake Solly, who's Rabbitoh's chairman, involved in the negotiations on the club side of things in the room is as like a bridge between the league and the players is an interesting one. I'm surprised that wasn't done with club representatives being involved in the negotiations, because they're sort of, the NRL is where they get some of their money from, but the players are their employees. It's kind of it has dragged on, but they have agreed in principle to a new CBA. And a week ago, 2 weeks ago, there was that looming threat of strike action. Even on Monday, there was still that potential of the RLPA escalating their media boycott to boycotting sponsors to strike action. But because they're an association, a trade association or a trade union, the players would miss out on pay. They wouldn't get paid if they're not playing. And the league has always stated that it did have a backup plan. Think of the film The Replacement with Keanu Reeves. So, positive outcome. It's still not fully signed off yet, but basically agreed in principle. And we'll see the context of the CBA, what has changed from the deal that was on the table 5-6 weeks ago to now, and how much ground's been given. And going forward, the next negotiations, are due in 2027 for the next CBA. So 4 years' time, we'll be doing this again. Hopefully a much smoother process for the next CBA and the next negotiations, and less drawn out, because I think both sides have taken some reputational damage. And I think the media reporting, for the most part, was heavily biased towards the league and against the players, which I think is unfair, because the players already agreed to the salary increases and the increases of minimum salary. The issues they were arguing about was owed money, which was owed to them, which I think any worker, if they're owed back pay, is entitled to their back pay. Data collection and post-playing welfare and training opportunities. I think that is totally justifiable points of contention. There were other issues as well. There was a lot of issues in there that didn't affect all players, but there we go. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts on this long, drawn-out saga that's taken the best part of 2 years, although the last 7-8 months have really been difficult and interesting as well. And what do you see happen? Does Clint Newton stay at the RLPA? Is Andrew Abdo, has that weakened his authority at the NRL? And Peter V'landys, does he take a more hands-on, does he join the NRL and the ARL together? Could that be a solution to the sports governance side of things? Because he negotiates tough, but quickly. Andrew Abdo, it dragged on. So we shall see what happens. But for me, for now, thank you very much for watching. Place your comments in the comment section below, and I'll have some more content for you very, very soon.